Hi, how are you? It's good to see some familiar folks here. Um, I think the majority of us know each other. I'm Mel McGee, and I'm here to talk to you today about how we built an AI native organization at SkillSpout. So I originally created this presentation for the GCP Summit, and I'm going to go through it here with you. But if you have questions, feel free. We can keep this relatively conversational. But let me present. Um, Last year, first of all, what happened? Last year, I came to a place where I hit a wall. I run a couple of companies. I have multiple um, email accounts, sales, finance, product meetings, different teams, all of this is going at once. I'm guessing all of us can relate to this. I was using AI every day, some mostly things that you might be using. There's a difference, though, between using AI and building it into how you operate. So I rebuilt a whole operation around it. And one promise before I show you any of this, there are a couple of different types of voices that are pretty loud out there. First group is saying people selling you the most powerful thing you don't need. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have folks who are saying it's simpler than it really is. And I'm not going to be either one. I'm not going to give you theory, I'm going to give you evidence. Before we go any further and before I show anything else, I'm going to give you a quick map of adoption, of AI adoption. At SkillSpout, we teach a 5-stage AI maturity model. So building my own system, I looked up one day and realized that I walked through all 5 stages myself. We're going to see where you are on this. So here are the 5 stages of AI maturity. Human first. So we start with foundational, and this is literacy, safety, shared vocabulary on your team. Applied. This is practical workflows and working policy within your organization. Who's going to use it? How are you going to use AI? What tools are you using AI with? And then working with organizations to explore the tools that are already built in. For example, if you're a Microsoft shop, you might go through Copilot and look at how you can use Copilot with Microsoft 365 applications or using the built-in agents Microsoft already provides. Embedded AI. This is where we start getting into departmental workflows, exploring those workflows, looking at data more, and building your own personal assistant. So in Microsoft 365, this could be building your own agents, learning to build your own agents and use them and hook up some connectors, do things like that. Agentic AI. Now, this is where we cross a threshold from generative AI, which is when we type in a chat bot, more or less, and the chat bot responds to us. Agentic AI is not only when the bot responds to us, and I'm just calling AI assistants chatbots. I'm referring to the same thing here. But agentic AI, it's more. It's when it's almost like they have arms, right? They can actually do things now. So instead of asking AI assistant or a large language model a question and getting a response, or having it research for us even, this is a little bit more. This is taking the next steps when AI actually becomes your assistant. So instead of saying, you could go, if the bot's telling you you can go up and look this up yourself, you would say, no, you do that and report back to me. So it becomes more of an assistant. And then finally, what we call the 5th stage of AI, human first AI adoption, which is cultural AI. And cultural AI is really having governance. When I say governance, I'm not talking like legally, how you might do this, AI within our state or federal government systems. I'm talking about internal governance. Who's keeping track of the data? Who's keeping track of these skills? Who is responsible for AI, for the actions of agents, etc.? And that's what I'm referring to there. So I want you to figure out where you are on the 5 stages. And, I'd love if you could put in your chat bot, into the chat down here in Zoom, which stage you find yourself in. And it could be more than one. I mean, a lot of times organizations have people building over here and they're building agents, and then the rest of the team is learning the system, so they're not getting left behind. So I'd love to see where everybody is here. All right, I shall continue. Here's the evidence. I built my own company's operations on this architecture, and the thing I want you to leave with is already on the slide. The hard part is never the technology. The hard part is changing how you work, changing how people in your organizations work. So there are days when I run 13 sessions, product strategy, financial review, proposals, team coordination, and the system holds all of it. But I had to build that. I'm going to show you how I did it. And we're going to talk a little bit about systems that might do this for you now and what to look for in the future. So this is the actual thing. This is not a mock-up. It's not it's the interface I work in every day. So sometimes I'm working in an interface that's more of a command line. Sometimes I'm getting pop-ups, things like this. What do I mean by post-agentic? Quick definition, when I say post-agentic, I don't mean agents are over. It's just, I mean, they stop being the novelty. So they're assumed infrastructure now. And the real work is redesigning how you operate with that. The question stops being, where do we add an agent? It becomes, how does work get assembled, executed, governed, and improved? And who, not what, but who stays accountable? AI native gets sold 4 wrong ways. It's not everyone having a Copilot license. It's not a chatbot in every department. It's not having the most agents, and it's definitely not handing accountability to the machine. What it actually is intent is the entry point. You express the outcome, and the system assembles the work. It's context that is persistent. The organization's knowledge is structured and reachable. This is a huge deal. This is data. Where is your data? In doing a full map of data and making sure there's accountability within the data, sources of truth are identified, and there is an owner of these sources of truth. Execution is composable. What do I mean? Don't make big monolithic systems. Don't, Lego blocks, not big Lego sculptures is what I'm talking about here. So when I say skills, I'm talking about agents or what Claude Code might call skills. Other people are adopting that terminology as well. Things like this. They should be small chunks, not huge creations, so that you can reuse them. Autonomy is governed. This is a big one. A lot of times people are saying, my agent, and I'll just have an agent do all of this. It's trust needs to be earned, first of all. Don't set an agent out and have it wreak havoc, potentially wreak havoc on all of the trust you have earned with your customers, for example, sending random emails, maybe purchasing. I mean, I've heard horror stories. I'm guessing you might have too, of agents purchasing round trip tickets or things that were not governed by a human, and agents had too much authority. So this is part of governance, the idea that you have to trust, give just enough trust to the agents, in that trust should be earned after repeated demonstrations that the agent is doing it right. Okay. And it's workflow trust. It's not system wide. It's not, we are agentic fully, we are a post-agentic organization. It might be that you have one workflow, say a workflow, a process that an agent can do that might be consuming, let's say, transcripts and emails and chats and things like this. It's consuming this input, from the previous, from, let's say, the morning or yesterday. And you might have this run overnight and you're like, oh, it's not going externally, it's just pulling internally, etc. You might have that run on its own. Another workflow might be sending a proposal to a client. That would be one that I'm guessing you'd want eyes on before it was sent. So there are different levels of trust between this workflow gets full autonomy, gets to do it by itself. This workflow might have read permissions on documents, and it might be able to write to your internal systems, but it doesn't have maybe send permissions on email or something like that. So there's different trust ladders. This is, when I'm saying this, I'm suggesting to you that these are things to think about as you are building your own agentic system. And then every completed workflow can make the system smarter. This perhaps is the most important of all of these bullet points here in being AI native. It's not just about a task isn't done. In my world, in my governance system, a task isn't done until we have the outcome, and until that outcome can make the system smarter. So, think about it. A proposal, I was telling you, and we'll go through an example sales workflow in a moment. But let's say part of this is a proposal and it's getting sent to a client. Is it done? Is that process done when the proposal is sent? Or is it done when we get a response from the client regarding that proposal? And I would suggest it's not done until we know how that proposal did. And there could be lots of different steps of how this workflow did. But that should, in my opinion, then come back to the organization as a number that we can plug back in to get real information about. For example, these types of proposals are preferred. A PDF proposal, I'm just making this up, is preferred versus a document, a Word document. I'm totally making that up, but you understand how there might be nuances that you didn't realize before that you can put back into your agentic system to help make your company run better. All right. There are 5 layers. People are starting to say AI brain, and we're going to talk about this in a second, but my system has 5 layers, and most agentic systems have, or should have, in my opinion, 5 layers. You have the model. The model is what you're familiar with. It's the ChatGPTs of the world, or the, Claude's models of, Opus and Sonnet, things like that. That's the model. That's the thinking. Here's the key. Your competition can also rent these models. They can also subscribe to these models. It's It's not a differentiator here, unless you don't have it, right? But this is something your competitors can rent. Here's what they can't rent: the context. So the context, and you'll hear people start talking about the AI brains and things like that. That is uh, your data, your sources of truth, your voice. It's the one layer that compounds and is actually yours. The harness, this includes like tools, browsing tools, so file browsing, writing, file writing, creation tools, connections, stuff like this. That is the harness. So MCP servers, you might have heard of those. Those let your brain reach out with your knowledge and take action. So that's the harness. And then there's the operating system. So on top of these three layers that already exist, my system and systems like Claude Cowork starting to do this. They're taking on more of this operating system portion. Trained, repeatable methods, including reusable skills, workflow chains. These are things that it can pick up. It's the things you can teach it, right? And the programs that are involved, or the skills that are involved, the agents themselves. But that's not it. A lot of people are leaving off one of the most important parts here, the governance. So these are the rules, the laws and accountability, what your system's allowed to do, where you need human judgment, who answers for it. This is the person, the people, the human in the loop, as well as knowing when to trust agents to do something on their own. Those ladders of trust I was talking about, it's the idea that who's accountable for the data, who's accountable for the skills to be updated, etc. So we'll go through these. An uncomfortable truth here that you have been the integration layer in this whole process for the last X years of your career. You are the middleware between systems that don't talk to each other. And every decision started with a tour of a whole bunch of apps. And here's the inversion. Now, instead of me looking at email and HubSpot, for example, calendar, a CRM, all of this stuff before I jump on a meeting, now I say, help me prepare for my 2 p.m. I hope it's not a 2 a.m. meeting, 2 p.m. meeting. And the layer assembles context, the bot itself, the agentic system assembles this all for me. The apps stay the system of record, not me. The AI becomes the system of interaction, not me. So before the apps, email, that has sources of truth in it, right? You have input coming in there. Calendar, you have input. I have a meeting. CRM might have information about, a deal that you're working on or a client you're working with. Shared drives, you might have random files, maybe they store your product information, maybe their playbooks, etc. You have a project system that's telling you where a project is. All of these have input. You used to have to work through all of them, or at least I did. Now, let the agentic system do that work for you. We're moving from this application-centric kind of work to an intent-centric style of work. The applications can stay the systems of record. Like, you don't have to jump off HubSpot. HubSpot can still stay there as a system, your source of truth. Or maybe you have an ERP system that you can integrate with. They can stay there. Your OneDrive can stay there, or your SharePoint can stay there. But the AI becomes the system that glues it all together, the system of interaction, so you don't have to. So I used to, now I can just say, help me prepare for a meeting. It will prepare. It assembles the context across these connected systems. It deals with the CRM, the emails, the document, the research. It can go online, research a company's LinkedIn, etc. Look at their website, pull down the information, and then propose or complete the work. Give me, what does that mean? It could be a briefing. It could be some updates, next actions. It could be a proposal, all of those things. And then the most important step here is a human in the loop, the human's eyes on it, the human judgment. Let me give you an example. We've been talking about a sales meeting. This is something every organization, every business has. We all have meetings. We all have something. We have sales meetings. So what my system and agentic systems can do. Meeting, it detects a meeting. How does mine work? Mine looks at my calendar, detects a meeting, knows when this is a sales meeting. And if it doesn't, if it's unsure, will ask me. So let's say a sales meeting appears on the calendar. I don't even ask it to start. It just knows. It senses the meeting on the calendar. It gathers context. I'm going to say this one more time. Think about all the time that this saves. CRM review, full CRM review, full email reviews, calendars, looking at, do we have previous meetings? If so, let's look up the transcripts from those meetings. LinkedIn, go search on LinkedIn, search on the web, and then look in our own docs on Drive. Then utilize our voice if we have like our right, when I say our voice, I mean, I have different skills that know how to write in the style that I typically write in. That's what I mean, or our brand voice, etc. So it's gathering all this information. It's over 7 sources. And then it delivers a briefing to me. A meeting brief lands on my calendar before the call so that I can walk in prepared. Then after the meeting, the system looks up the transcripts and drafts HubSpot CRM updates, updates tasks, what needs to happen, and even drafts a follow-up email. At this point, everything pauses and nothing sends until I have my eyes on it, review it. Yep, approved, boom. And this is where human in the loop, if you've heard that term, that's what we're talking about. Human in the loop is super important at this point. Finally, it learns outcome captured, what happens, feeds back into this workflow so the next run gets smarter. And the organization can get smarter too. All right. I'm going to show, let's see, play the demo. Let's see if we can.
This is Exocog, the operating system Mel McGee built to run her business. She asked it to assemble a live demo and produce this walkthrough. Everything here is the real software. Only the client is fictional, so nothing private is on screen.
This is, by the way, I did not make this video. You might be able to tell because of the voice. After I made this presentation, I created another instance of my system, which I call Exocog, and I created a sandbox. So these are all fictitious clients and stuff like this. So go ahead. I did tell the system, though, make me a video. Make me a video of this. And this is what came out.
Mel usually drives it from a command line fast, but hard to follow along with, so this is the visual view. The idea behind it is simple. The system does the work, but anything that leaves the business waits for a human. Each morning, on its own, before anyone sits down, it puts together a briefing and reads through email, chat, and meeting transcripts. Anything that needs a decision is waiting here on the left in the attention queue. Take one workflow, start to finish, the sales process. It begins on the calendar when a meeting appears, a proposal review with Halvern Manufacturing. Nothing was started by hand. The meeting itself is the cue to begin. Open it, and the preparation is already there. The people in the room, a place for the transcript, and the notes for the meeting written ahead of time. The prep is finished before the call ever starts. Every client has a single home. This is Halvern. On the left is the work, moving through the pipeline from drafting the proposal to the decision that's now with the client. And on the right, everything the workflow has produced, the briefing, the transcript, the debrief, a coaching review, the proposal, the deck. All of it generated along the way as the deal moved. This is the proposal deck the client sees. Strategy first, training second, in 3 phases, each one tied to an outcome the engagement is measured against. And the proposal behind it, the full scope, and the timeline to be up and running before the client's busy season. After the call, the transcript turns into a debrief, what happened, some coaching, and the next steps. From that, it drafts the follow-up email and the update to the CRM. But look closely at that email. It's written and it's sitting in the drafts unsent. It hasn't gone anywhere. Because before anything leaves the business, the system asks, right here in the queue, send the follow-up to Dana, approve it, or hold it. Nothing goes out without that yes. And when the work is finished, the system asks one more thing, what actually happened. The answer is saved as the outcome, so the next run starts a little smarter. That's the shape of it. The work runs on its own, and the decisions stay with the person who's accountable for them.
All right. So that's just one workflow within the system. Things that I hope you saw included that context arrived to me assembled. I didn't have to open a whole bunch of applications to do it. So that's what I mean by the intent. We start with intent, not arrangement of systems. Then the pause before sending the proposal, sending an email, etc. There is a pause, and this is part of the governance system. And if you are building agentic systems right now, I would very much say, ring the alarm for you that building, oh, we're going to do everything, through the agent and just give the end of the day results, that there's no review in between, leaving the internal in-house boundary, maybe even departmental boundary, and external, everything that moves between departments or companies gets a human review, or at least ask that question. Where does human review, where is that needed? And the reason is that if you think about it, in email, for example, you might say, well, we send HubSpot emails or whatever, wherever your email system that maybe you do marketing emails, whatever that system is, you might think, well, we do this all the time. What's the big deal? The difference is those are what I would call deterministic emails. You know what they're going to say. There's not variability there. When you're working with large language models and AI like this, they're probabilistic. So you could say probably the email will read like this, but you can't be certain. You cannot be 100% sure it will. So there is a boundary there that you need human eyes on it. And then finally, I hope you saw the outcome prompt at the end, the system asking what happened. It doesn't need to be a prompt. For my system, I like to, when I'm working within it, I like to give my feedback as well. It could just be a received or sent, or an A/B test and the results of an A/B test, for example, like, oh, 50 people opened this style of email, 80 people opened that style of email, something like that, right? So, but getting those results back into your company's sources of truth or inputs so that the system can use them to learn, right? It will help your company grow. So I told you that was just one of many workflows. Here is what some of the, it's not all of the skills and agents that are built into the system I made include meeting debrief, sales meeting prep, brand asset package, session prep, cascade pricing. Like if you have a change in your organization, it might just be cascade changes. LinkedIn drafting, client handoff. I have a Money Monday, um, followed by Taco Tuesday, morning briefings, kickoff prep, a story miner. I have something when I'm working in my system, it's asking me how I'm doing. If I think of something novel, it will bring it to my attention. Oh, that looks like it would be great for a LinkedIn newsletter, something like that. So I have a training video studio, PDF form filler. Not kidding here. I had a government request and they were, here's a PDF to fill out and fax it to us. So it was very fun. Let's see if it's in here. You'll see that I have a fax system connected and working in my ops system too. So it's just very different worlds working together. Fax, it's, we'll see if I'll need a beeper system or in the future, but all of these systems and then some are already built into this, exocognition system that I use. And when the system does all the doing, there is another result to watch out for, which is you or the team and reviewing things, you become the bottleneck, you become the slowest in that group. So thinking that through, how can you improve that part of the system while still maintaining quality becomes a big deal when you become the constraint. That work that's left to judgment and reviewing the AI's work is a skill in its own right. So what I do is I have AI, take the first pass, and then I'll send my results often out to a second large language model. For example, I typically use Claude Code for my main first drafts and my main working, through the system. And then I pass it off to OpenAI. So ChatGPT gets to, interrogate Claude and that sort of fun. But they take a pass at each other before it comes to me. So it is coming to me more well established than it might have in the past. So I'm working through ways previously, and other people are obviously trying to solve this problem as well, as how do we keep the quality up and make sure there's humans in the loop without becoming the one that's the bottleneck in the system. Just something to think through. All right, so we started this conversation with AI on the org chart, and I want to talk to you about where does AI actually go? So most most leaders answer literally here. A title, a seat, and a randomized study of over 1,000 managers shows what happens when we do this. So honesty is that all managers, the companies that had already put AI on the org chart had some really bad findings. 16% less review, so weaker oversight. Passing the buck. So 44% jump in passing the buck. Accountability moved off of the humans about 9 points. So those are real problems. When you give AI an actual seat on the org chart, the problem, it's the instinct is right. It's just the geometry is wrong. An agent shouldn't get a seat, a box on the org chart. It should get an owner. The boxes stay human because accountability stays human. So the org chart answers who reports to whom. It can't answer how an outcome gets produced or where AI acts or who's accountable when an agent gets it wrong. Most people drop the agent in its own box. People feel replaceable at this point. So you have Kevin, the analyst here. Other people start feeling replaceable. Accountability slides onto the machine, Kevin, and that's the leak. AI doesn't invent new rules of accountability. Everyone who uses it owns their result. The agent is a tool, not a teammate, never the scapegoat. And that's what's happening. People are saying, Kevin did it, not my fault. Kevin did it, So, I'm being facetious here, but it's kind of true. It's how we think when we anthropomorphize a computer, an agent on a computer. It does lead to Kevin did it. I don't need to review it. It's less accountability, things like this. And there are studies showing this now. So here's what a lot of experts and what we're doing at SkillSpout. We're putting agents not on the org chart as an accountability seat, but as a reference. Here are tools used in the system. An agent never gets its own box. It's a tool people use, not a teammate to blame. It can't hold accountability the way a person can, and one human owns it. Everyone who uses it owns their results, though. So Sarah might own the engagement health monitor agent, and people might use this agent. And if something breaks, it is the person who owns the accountability. It's their responsibility to make sure that they work with the builder to have it fixed. It's their responsibility to make sure they're keeping the data it uses updated and clean and not sprawling, so you don't have copy of copy of copy of source of product truth or something like that. It becomes the leader's job to, it's part of their, jobs. Actually, it's part of the things they do. All right. This is something from my real system. I told the system to fix itself. We were talking about how do I stop being the bottleneck? I'm like, you do it, is what I told it. I said, you identify this issue. So, all right. Here's how we put AI on the org chart. This is how I believe you should do it. Agents live in a registry, not on reporting lines. It's an inventory with permissions, prompts, scope. You govern your agents as inventory, not identities. Name them after workflows, not personas. So engagement health monitor, not Kevin. One named human owner. One named human owner, not a group of, one. Autonomy is tiered and earned. What do I mean? Tier one, that could be, it gets to read or edit, never create a document, for example. That could be a tier. You set this split up. You can set it up later, but the split isn't per organization. I mentioned this before. It's per work stream. It's per process. You never say our whole organization is going to give send access to all agents so they can send emails and delete files on our system. That would be horrible, right? You do it per workflow, never as a blanket overarching statement. Here's a whole thing in one frame. On the left, That's the mistake. It's the agent is a box in the trunk where accountability leaks. On the right is the fix. It's the chart that stays human, and the agent hands off one accountable owner by a dotted line. In the table underneath it is what the org chart can't show. Per work stream, what the AI drafts and where a human leads, each with an autonomy tier that's earned, not granted. Most rows stay human-led on purpose. So that's what we're doing internally here. This is part of cultural AI. This is the governance piece. This is what I'm talking about. So here's the governance running on its own. It ran the PII check. So I have a PII, personally identifiable information. So private things, right? You don't want, can you imagine, for example, if you're talking about a client and that gets leaked somehow into the ethers, right? Yeah, it's just like, ooh, there's PII. Or if you have HIPAA compliance, for example, you wouldn't want information about one of your clients and their health information leaked, even, by an agent. So we have a PII check built in. Classified the document. It did that. It classified the document, pushed it to the right place. Then I noticed I used that route a lot, and it offered to add it to the index. I didn't ask for that. It offered it to me. So those rules are built in to my system, and it does offer them up to me. What we would tell you before you built. All right, here's your takeaways. Workflows those come before agents. So do not ask, where can we add an agent? Ask what outcome you are producing, where it stalls, and what done means. What's your definition of done? Automating a poorly understood process gives you faster, but a less visible mess. Context is the asset. We talked about this before. This is your data, your information. Models like the LLMs, those commoditize. Your context compounds. If it isn't written down, it didn't happen. Autonomy is a dial. Reversible work runs automatically for the most part. Irreversible actions get approved one at a time. Bezos has a principle of, the one-way doors versus the two-way doors. If you can't get back in through a door, that's when you stop and think about it more. If the door can go both ways, if you can reverse and take new action, well, then maybe gives the agent more autonomy. It's the same principle. New capabilities start gated. So they start with the least amount of autonomy, and they earn autonomy and as they earn trust over time. So basically, you're like, prove it, right? The loop only learns what you tell it happened. Agents grew 15 times year over year, and execution is easy to log, but outcomes are not. I audited my own system, and at one point, outcome capture was only at 3%. So the constraint isn't intelligence, it's whether you capture what happened. That's a big deal. Something that was a hard lesson for me. You can't manage an agent you can't see into. So you can't put an agent on a performance improvement plan. What do? You talk to the developer, you talk to the person on your org chart who is responsible for that agent. Ownership without a line to the builder is just a name on a box. So have the builder there with your owner, your subject matter expert, so they can work together. And you have to be able to see into it. So this is the loop live. It flagged a pattern across 8 sessions and asked to govern it, then asked me how the session felt. That feedback is how it learns how I work and honestly how I grow. So I have it working with me as well, not just coming with external results. How did I feel? What's going on? Are you heading for a hike, etc.? My favorite part, after I rebuilt these slides the morning of the talk, my system surfaced my newsletter ideas on its own. So I have a skill that does this, and it ranked the lessons I just gave you. You can't put an agent on a PIP, a performance improvement plan, and rank that one as my #1 story to write. The loop doesn't just learn how I work, it produces content as a byproduct. So that's one of the other things I built into the system. So it does continue this loop. Start with exactly one workflow. This is what you can take away. Here's the playbook. If you take one thing back with you, one workflow, high frequency, cross system, painful, and measurable. Give it one named owner, never a committee, one explicit trust boundary, one measurable outcome decided before you build in at least, this is relatively arbitrary and you can actually do math on this, right? But at least 20 observed runs before you scale it. Don't scale the prototype, scale the validated pattern. These are principles, not a product. What transfers isn't just my stack, what I built here. It is the knowledge, it is the governance, it is all of the tools, etc., that I hope you take back with you. You can use systems like Claude Cowork. You can, Microsoft's coming out with their version of Claude Cowork, obviously working with Anthropic and Claude to do this. It is Claude Cowork, but in the Microsoft environment. These will mostly be available to you as products through those organizations. They may not have all of the governance, though. So that is one thing to think through. That you need to decide as an organization, that governance piece, as well as the piece of learning from the system itself. Remember, the human owns the results at the end of the day. You can't give away all of the results and scapegoat a computer, and it needs to earn autonomy. The winners here won't be organizations with the most agents. They'll be the ones that turn judgment into reusable context, workflows into learning systems, and autonomy into something earned. When someone asks where AI sits on your org chart, it doesn't get a box, it gets an owner. The boxes stay human because accountability stays human. Your job stops being the doer of every task. You become the orchestrator and the human who stays accountable. One workflow, one owner, one boundary, one metric, 20 observed runs at least. That's how you put AI on the org chart correctly. Thank you.